After 12 years of silence, my daughter returned with a lawsuit and a pack of lies. She wanted her mother's entire inheritance, so she painted me as an abusive father who terrorized our family. Listening to her venomous accusations in that courtroom nearly destroyed me, but I'd protected her secret long enough. The time for enabling was over. Justice demanded its price. The moment I spoke those two simple words, I watched the color drain from her face as pure terror replaced her confident smirk. She thought she held all the cards, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I knew exactly why she really ran away that night. I'm grateful you're here with me today. Before I share this heartbreaking story, please comment below and let me know where my story is reaching you. Your presence means everything as I open these old wounds. The Denver courthouse felt like a tomb that morning, all marble and echoes. I sat in the gallery watching the woman at the plaintiff's table, 38 years old now, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that could cut glass. My daughter, my little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest during bedtime stories. 12 years since she vanished from our lives like smoke. The court calls Barrett versus Barrett regarding the estate of Raina Barrett, deceased. Judge Morrison's voice cut through my memories. Amanda Hayes rose all business in her tailored suit. Your Honor, my client seeks rightful inheritance of her mother's entire estate. I watched Sloane stand, and for a moment I saw the little girl who climbed into my lap after nightmares. Then she spoke, shattering that illusion. Your Honor, I am the only surviving child of Raina Barrett. I am her sole heir. The only surviving child. My breath caught. She said it casually, as if Austin had never existed, as if his laugh had never filled our kitchen on Saturday mornings, as if his baseball trophies weren't still on our mantle gathering dust like monuments to a life cut short. But furthermore, Sloane continued, her gaze finding mine, my father has no legal or moral claim to my mother's assets. No moral claim. From the daughter who disappeared without a trace at 26, leaving us wondering if she was dead in a ditch or simply didn't care enough to call. Your Honor, Amanda Hayes interjected, Dr. Barrett abandoned his parental responsibilities. My client was forced to flee the family home due to his behavior. Flee. As if I'd been some monster instead of a father who worked double shifts after the medical bills started piling up. As if I hadn't spent countless nights wondering where my daughter was and if she was safe. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Ms. Barrett, can you elaborate on these circumstances? Sloane's chin lifted, something flickering in her eyes that looked like satisfaction. Your Honor, my father created an environment of fear in our home. He was the reason I had to leave 12 years ago, and he's the reason I stayed away. She paused. He doesn't deserve a single penny of what my mother worked to build. The courtroom felt smaller, the air thicker. I wanted to shout that she was lying, that I'd never laid a hand on her in anger, but something held me back. Maybe it was how she avoided mentioning Austin entirely, as if our son had been erased from her memory. The defendant will have an opportunity to respond, Judge Morrison said, but this court takes allegations of domestic misconduct very seriously. Domestic misconduct. The phrase hung like an accusation, like a verdict already rendered. I stared at this stranger wearing my daughter's face and felt something cold settle in my chest. At 60, I'd seen enough of life to recognize revenge when it walked into a courtroom. She wasn't just here for money. This was personal. This was payback for something I didn't understand. Judge Morrison adjusted his glasses. Ms. Barrett, the court would like to understand the specific circumstances that led to your departure. Sloane's hands trembled as she reached for tissues Amanda Hayes had placed on the table. The tears came on cue, perfect droplets, catching the harsh courtroom lighting. Your Honor, she began, her voice breaking, I was abused by my father from childhood. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Abused. The courtroom tilted sideways, and I gripped my chair until my knuckles went white. He would come home drunk. Sloane continued, dabbing her eyes with practiced precision. He'd fly into rages over nothing. A dish in the sink, a toy on the floor. Anything could set him off. I wanted to shout that every word was a lie. I'd barely touched alcohol since medical school, but my lawyer wasn't here yet, and anything I said would make things worse. The worst part was when he'd go after Austin. My little brother was so small, defenseless. I tried to protect him, but that only made Dad angrier. Austin, Finally, she mentioned him, but not the Austin I remembered. Not the boy who'd worshipped his big sister who'd followed her around like a devoted puppy. What happened when you intervened? Amanda prompted. He'd turn on me instead. Sloane's shoulders shook. He said I was just like my mother, weak, pathetic, worthless. Then he'd... She paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Judge Morrison's expression shifted from neutral to concerned. He was buying every word. Can you be more specific about the physical abuse? Bruises, mostly, where they wouldn't show. Sloane rolled up her sleeves, revealing faded scars. He was careful. He's a doctor, after all. He knew exactly how much damage he could do. The courtroom felt like it was closing in. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was a stranger wearing Sloane's face, spinning lies, so intricate I almost admired the craftsmanship. I thought about the real Sloane, the little girl who climbed into my lap during thunderstorms, the teenager who cried over injured birds and insisted we nurse them back to health, the young woman who'd hugged me tight before college, promising to call every Sunday. Where had that girl gone? The final straw came when I was 26, Sloane continued. I came home and found him standing over Austin with his fist raised. I knew if I didn't get out, he'd eventually kill one of us. Kill one of us, the phrase echoed in the silent courtroom. So you fled? Judge Morrison asked. I had to. I was terrified he'd come after me, so I changed my name, moved across the country. I've been running from him for 12 years. Running from me. As if I were some monster instead of a father who'd spent those 12 years wondering if his daughter was alive or dead. Judge Morrison made notes, his pen scratching like claws on stone. Dr. Barrett, you'll have an opportunity to respond, but these allegations paint a troubling picture. I sat in stunned silence, watching my daughter destroy me with surgical precision. Every word was calculated, every tear strategically deployed. She'd turned our family's tragedy into her weapon. But why? Why would she lie so completely about a childhood filled with love and laughter until everything went wrong? Why would she rewrite our history when she knew the truth? The house felt like a mausoleum when I walked through the front door. Every footstep echoed off the hardwood floors Raina had insisted on refinishing before the cancer took her. The silence pressed against my eardrums, thick and suffocating. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter, the clatter unnaturally loud in the emptiness. The morning's courtroom drama felt surreal now, like something I'd watched on television. In the living room, our family photos lined the mantel like shrines to better times. I stopped in front of the largest one, all four of us, at Sloane's college graduation. Raina glowing in her yellow sundress, Austin barely 18 grinning in his too big suit. Sloane in her cap and gown, one arm around her mother, the other ruffling Austin's hair with casual affection. That girl bore no resemblance to the woman who'd woven lies in court today. I picked up a smaller frame. Austin and Sloane at Christmas morning maybe 10 years ago. He couldn't have been more than 16, still excited about presents. Sloane was laughing at something he'd said, her face lit with genuine joy. She'd always been his biggest cheerleader, attending every baseball game, helping with homework. The Sloane in this picture would have died before hurting Austin. So what happened to her? I walked to the window overlooking our backyard. The swing set I'd built when the kids were small still stood there, rusted and overgrown with weeds. Raina had wanted me to take it down after Austin died, but I couldn't dismantle something that held so many memories of their laughter. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, probably a reporter. I almost let it go to voicemail. Dr. Barrett. This is Grant Ellison. I'm an attorney here in Denver. The voice was deep authoritative, with decades of courtroom confidence. I heard about your situation through colleagues at the hospital. I think you need representation. I sank into Raina's favorite armchair. I don't know if I can afford... Dr. Barrett, let me stop you there. I've been practicing family law for 35 years. I've seen good people destroyed by false accusations and guilty people walk free because they had better lawyers. Which category do you fall into? The question hung in the air, in the growing darkness of my empty house surrounded by photographs of the family I'd lost. The answer seemed obvious. I never laid a hand on my daughter, Mr. Ellison, not once, not ever. Then we need to talk. Tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. My office is on 17th Street. After he hung up, I sat in the gathering twilight, staring at Austin's senior portrait on the piano. His smile was so much like his mother's, open, trusting, full of hope. for a future cut short. "Son," I whispered to the empty room, "I don't know what your sister's planning, but I won't let her destroy what's left of our family's memory." The decision crystallized in that moment solid as the grief I'd carried for 12 years. Tomorrow, I would fight back. Grant Ellison's office occupied the corner of a glass tower on 17th Street, with windows offering a commanding view of the Rocky Mountains. The man himself was exactly what I'd expected, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that made opposing counsel nervous. "Dr. Barrett," he stood from behind a mahogany desk. "Thank you for coming." His handshake was firm, confident. The walls displayed Harvard law degrees, newspaper clippings of high-profile cases, and photos with Colorado politicians. This was a man who won cases. "Coffee. You look like you didn't sleep much." He was right. I'd spent the night replaying Sloane's courtroom performance, trying to understand how my little girl had become someone capable of such calculated cruelty. Grant poured coffee, then took the chair across from me rather than staying behind his desk. "I've reviewed the court documents. Your daughter's allegations are serious. Domestic violence, child abuse, creating fear that forced her to flee." "None of it's true," I said. I never raised a hand to either of my children. Grant studied my face with decades of experience reading people. "I believe you, but belief isn't evidence, and evidence wins cases." He leaned forward. "Help me understand if these allegations are false. Why would your own daughter make them?" The question I'd been dreading. "I don't know," I said, which was both true and inadequate. "She disappeared 12 years ago. No contact, no explanation. That's a long time to stay away from family." Grant's eyes never left mine. What happened 12 years ago that made her leave? The coffee cup felt heavy in my hands. Outside, Denver sprawled beneath us like a circuit board. "There was a tragedy in our family," I said carefully. "We lost Austin, my son Sloane's younger brother. It was difficult for everyone. How did he die?" The question hung between us like a blade. Grant's expression was patient but persistent. "It was an accident," I said finally. "What kind of accident?" I set down my cup, hands not quite steady. "Mr. Ellison, there are some things about my family that I can't discuss." "Not yet?" Grant leaned back, and I saw disappointment shift across his expression. "Dr. Barrett, I've been doing this for 35 years. I've represented innocent people who went to prison because they couldn't tell me the truth, and I've gotten guilty people acquitted because they were honest about their mistakes." He walked to the window. "If you want to beat your daughter in court, you need to trust me with whatever you're hiding. It's not that simple. It never is." He turned back to me. "But here's what is simple. If you don't tell me the truth, we're going to lose. And losing means more than just money. It means your daughter gets to rewrite your family's history, and you get to live with whatever lies she chooses to tell." The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. He was right, of course. But some truths were too dangerous to speak aloud, even to save yourself. Amanda Hayes' office was a monument to ambition. Floor-to-ceiling law books, awards from the Colorado Bar Association, and a collection of crystal paperweights that caught the morning light like diamonds. She sat behind her glass desk, manicured fingers drumming against the surface as she reviewed her notes from yesterday's hearing. "That was a strong opening performance," Amanda said, not looking up from her legal pad. "Judge Morrison was clearly sympathetic to your story." Sloane sat across from her, perfectly composed, in a navy blue suit that projected just the right amount of vulnerability mixed with determination. She'd learned long ago that appearance was everything in situations like this. "It wasn't a performance," Sloane replied smoothly. "It was the truth." Amanda's smile was sharp as a scalpel. "Of course, but we need to build on that foundation. Emotional testimony only goes so far. We need concrete evidence to support your claims of abuse." "What kind of evidence?" "Medical records would be ideal, but I assume those don't exist." Amanda raised an eyebrow. He was careful. "Never left marks that would show." Sloane's voice carried just the right note of remembered pain. "Then we need witnesses. People who saw the abuse, or at least the aftermath. Neighbors, teachers, family friends who noticed changes in your behavior." Sloane leaned back in her chair, considering. "There's my old roommate from college, Jessica. She always said I had trust issues with men. I could explain that it stemmed from childhood trauma." "Perfect. Anyone else?" "My mother's sister, Aunt Carol. She and Mom weren't close, but she might be willing to testify that she suspected something was wrong in our household. Amanda made notes, her pen scratching across the paper with predatory efficiency. What about the 12-year gap? The judge will want to know why you stayed away so long without contact. Fear, Sloane said without hesitation. I'll say I was terrified he'd find me and finish what he started. That I changed my name, moved constantly, lived in constant terror of him tracking me down. Did you actually change your name? Legally, no. But I used different names for work apartments, that sort of thing. Enough to create a paper trail if we need it. Amanda nodded approvingly. Good thinking. What about your brother's death? That's obviously a sensitive topic, but we might be able to use it to our advantage. Something flickered across Sloane's face, too quick to identify, but Amanda caught it. Austin died in an accident, Sloane said carefully. I wasn't there when it happened. But you blame your father. I blame him for creating the environment that led to it. The constant tension, the fear, the way Austin tried to protect me and got caught in the crossfire. Sloane's voice grew harder. My father destroyed our family long before Austin died. Amanda leaned forward, sensing opportunity. That's good. We can frame it as a pattern of behavior that culminated in tragedy. Paint him as a man whose violence escalated over time. He needs to pay for what he's done, Sloane said, her mask slipping just enough to reveal the cold fury beneath. He took everything from me, my childhood, my sense of safety, my brother. Now I'm going to take everything from him. The estate is worth how much? About $2 million between the house investments and Mom's life insurance. But this isn't just about money. Sloane's eyes glittered with something that had nothing to do with grief or justice. This is about making him understand what it feels like to lose everything that matters. Amanda smiled, recognizing a kindred spirit. I like your style, Sloane. Most clients want to win, but they lack the killer instinct. You're different. I've had 12 years to plan this, Sloane replied. 12 years to think about exactly how I wanted him to suffer. Well then, Amanda said, closing her file with a satisfied snap. Let's make sure he gets everything he deserves. Next week's hearing, we go for the throat. The courthouse felt different the second time around. The marble floors seemed colder and the wooden pews packed with more spectators. Word had gotten out a prominent surgeon accused of domestic violence by his own daughter. Grant sat beside me, briefcase organized with military precision. We'd spent the week preparing our defense, though it felt like trying to prove a negative. Stay calm no matter what they throw at us, Grant murmured as Judge Morrison took his seat. Amanda Hayes looked like a predator who'd caught the scent of blood. She'd traded her conservative suit for dramatic burgundy. Sloane sat beside her in pale blue, the picture of wounded innocence. Your Honor, today will present testimony that corroborates my client's allegations of systematic abuse. She called her first witness. The plaintiff calls Jessica Martinez to the stand. A woman in her late 30s approached the witness box. Blonde hair pulled back, severely nervous energy radiating from every step. I'd never seen her before, but she looked at me with disgust, usually reserved for convicted felons. Ms. Martinez, how do you know the plaintiff? Sloane and I were roommates at Colorado State, freshmen through graduation. Did Ms. Barrett ever discuss her home life? Jessica's hands twisted in her lap. She had a hard time trusting people, especially men. She'd flinch if someone raised their voice or moved too quickly. My chest tightened. This woman was describing someone I'd never met, certainly not the confident daughter who'd called home every Sunday during college. Did she ever explain these reactions? She said her father had a temper, that he'd hurt her when she was younger. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper that carried to every corner. She showed me scars once, on her arms and back, said they were from when he'd lost control. Grant was already on his feet. Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay. The witness is testifying to her own observations, Amanda countered. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Martinez. Jessica gained confidence. Sloane was terrified of going home for holidays. She'd have panic attacks before family visits. I always wondered why she stayed away after graduation, but now I understand. She was protecting herself. I wanted to shout that it was all lies. Sloane had loved coming home for Christmas. She'd helped Raina decorate the tree, taught Austin to make cookies, fallen asleep, watching movies with us on New Year's Eve. But the courtroom believed Jessica Martinez. I could see it in their faces, in the way Judge Morrison leaned forward. Grant's cross-examination was thorough but futile. Jessica stuck to her story with rehearsed consistency. When Amanda called Sloane's Aunt Carol to testify about suspicious bruises, I felt the case slipping away. Your Honor. Amanda concluded, the pattern is clear. Dr. Barrett created an environment of fear that forced his daughter to flee. The evidence speaks for itself. Judge Morrison removed his glasses, cleaning them with deliberate care. When he looked up, his expression had hardened. Mr. Ellison, I hope your client's defense is more compelling than what I've seen so far. Based on today's testimony, I'm inclined to believe the plaintiff's version of events. The words hit like a physical blow. Inclined to believe. The case wasn't over, but the writing was on the wall. Grant squeezed my shoulder as court recessed, but I barely felt it. Around us, spectators filed out with the satisfied air of people who'd witnessed justice in action. They had no idea they'd just watched an elaborate performance designed to destroy an innocent man. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wondered if fighting back had been a mistake. Grant's office felt like a war room after a devastating defeat. Legal briefs scattered across his desk, empty coffee cups marking the hours we'd spent dissecting today's disaster. We got blindsided, Grant said, loosening his tie. Jessica Martinez was coached within an inch of her life. Every pause, every tear, it was all choreographed. I slumped in the leather chair, feeling every one of my 60 years. But there's no way to prove that is there, not without knowing what really happened 12 years ago. Grant fixed me with a stare that had probably broken countless witnesses. What are you hiding? The question hung between us like a loaded gun. I told you there was an accident. Bullshit. Grant's voice cut through my words. Accidents don't make daughters disappear for 12 years. Accidents don't turn loving children into vengeful strangers who hire expensive lawyers to destroy their fathers. He paced to the window with restless energy. You're protecting someone, Logan, and that someone is the same daughter who's currently trying to ruin your life. She's still my child. Is she because the woman in that courtroom isn't acting like anyone's daughter? She's acting like someone with a guilty conscience who's decided the best defense is a good offense. The words hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. I'd seen the calculation in Sloane's eyes, the way she'd orchestrated every moment for maximum impact. What if telling the truth makes everything worse? Worse than what? Losing everything you've worked for. Having your name dragged through the mud. Grant sat across from me, leaning forward. Or are you more worried about what happens to Sloane when the truth comes out? I couldn't answer that. Grant studied my face, then played his final card. What about Austin? The name hit me like a physical blow. Grant nodded as if he'd confirmed something he'd suspected. Your son is dead, Logan. He can't protect himself anymore. He can't defend his memory or reputation. Grant's voice softened slightly. But you can. The question is whether you love your living daughter more than your dead son. The office fell silent except for the distant sound of traffic. Every day this case continues. Austin's memory gets more tarnished. Grant continued relentlessly. Today Sloane painted him as a victim of your violence. Tomorrow, who knows what story she'll tell. By the time this is over, your son will be remembered as a casualty of your supposed abuse. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but it's reality. Grant gathered his papers. You have until the next hearing to decide what matters more, protecting the daughter who's destroying you or defending the son who can't defend himself. He walked me to the elevator, his hand on my shoulder, carrying 35 years of legal experience. Go home, Logan. Think about what Austin would want you to do. Think about what kind of father lets his child's memory be destroyed to protect the person who destroyed it in the first place. The elevator doors closed, but his words followed me into the Denver night. For the first time in 12 years, I found myself wondering if the secret I'd kept to protect Sloane was actually protecting the wrong person entirely. The house welcomed me with its familiar silence, but tonight it felt different. Not empty expectant, as if the walls were holding their breath, waiting for something 12 years in the making. I poured myself bourbon and settled into my chair. Grant's words pressed against my chest. What kind of father lets his child's memory be destroyed? Austin's senior portrait stared back at me from the mantel, that crooked smile so much like his mother's. 18 years old and full of dreams about studying engineering at Colorado State. He'd wanted to build bridges. Connect things that are supposed to be together, Dad. I raised my glass to his photograph. I'm sorry, son. I've been connecting all the wrong things. The bourbon burned, but not as much as the memory of that last night. Austin had been excited about something bouncing around the kitchen while Raina made dinner. He'd discovered something important about Sloane that he needed to tell us, but we'd never gotten the chance to hear it. Your sister loved you, I whispered to the empty room. At least I thought she did. I've spent 12 years telling myself what happened was an accident, that she ran because she was scared and grieving. The grandfather clock chimed 11 times. Tomorrow's hearing would determine everything, not just my financial future, but how the world remembered my family. I walked to Austin's bedroom, something I'd avoided for months. His baseball trophy's college acceptance letter still pinned to the bulletin board, the half-finished model airplane on his desk. Tonight I needed to be here. His journal lay on the nightstand where he'd left it that final evening. I'd never had the courage to read it before, but Grant's words echoed. He can't defend himself anymore. With trembling hands, I opened to the last entry dated 3 days before he died. I can't believe what I found out about Sloane. I have to tell Mom and Dad, but I'm scared they won't believe me. She's been stealing from the charity fund at work, and when I confronted her, she said I was just a stupid kid who didn't understand how the world worked. But I do understand. Stealing is wrong even if you're family, especially if you're family. I'm going to tell them tomorrow night at dinner. Sloane needs help, and maybe if we all work together, we can fix this before it gets worse. The journal slipped from my hands, landing with a soft thud. Austin had known. My beautiful, honest son had discovered his sister's crime and planned to do the right thing. And she'd killed him for it. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer, 12 years of willful blindness crashing down. I'd convinced myself it was an accident because I couldn't bear to believe one child would murder another. I'd protected Sloane because I thought she was traumatized, not because she was guilty. But Austin deserved better than my delusions. I picked up my phone and dialed Grant's number, not caring about the late hour. Logan. His voice was alert despite the time. Nothing's wrong, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Everything's finally right. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to tell the court exactly what happened the night Austin died. Are you sure? I looked at Austin's picture on his desk, him and Sloane at his graduation, both laughing at some forgotten joke. My son deserves to have his story told. The real story, not the lie I've been living with. I took a deep breath. Austin was a good kid, Grant. He was honest and brave and everything a father could hope for. It's time the world knew that. After I hung up, I sat in Austin's room until dawn, surrounded by the remnants of a life cut short by someone he'd trusted completely. Tomorrow I would make sure everyone knew what kind of person my son really was. The courthouse was packed for what everyone expected to be the final hearing. Reporters lined the back rows, their cameras ready to capture the moment a respected surgeon was brought to his knees by his own daughter's testimony. Sloane sat at the plaintiff's table in a black dress that suggested mourning and resilience in equal measure. She'd chosen her costume well for this final performance. Your Honor, Amanda Hayes began, my client has endured enough. The evidence is overwhelming. Dr. Barrett's pattern of abuse drove his daughter from her home and contributed to the tragic death of her brother. We ask the court to award full damages. Sloane stood for her closing statement, every inch the grieving daughter seeking justice. I've lived in fear for 12 years, she said, her voice carrying to every corner. Fear of the man who was supposed to protect me. My brother Austin died because of the violence in our home. She turned to look at me. But I won't be silent anymore. Austin deserves justice, and so do I. Judge Morrison nodded solemnly, clearly preparing to rule in her favor. Grant squeezed my shoulder, our signal. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of 12 years lifting from my shoulders. Your Honor, I have something to say. The courtroom fell silent. Sloane's confident expression flickered. Austin's truth, I said quietly, looking directly at my daughter. The words hit Sloane like a physical blow. Her face went ashen, her hands trembling as she gripped the table. Your Honor, 12 years ago, my son Austin discovered that his sister had been embezzling money from a children's charity. He confronted her about it, planning to tell us so we could get Sloane help. The courtroom was dead silent. Amanda Hayes frantically whispered to Sloane, Austin believed families should hold each other accountable. On March 15th, he told Sloane he was going to expose her theft. They argued at the top of our staircase. Sloane pushed him. My son fell and broke his neck. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. I should have called police immediately. Instead, I protected my daughter. I told everyone Austin had slipped. Sloane disappeared 3 days later, not because I abused her, but because she couldn't live with what she'd done. That's a lie. Sloane shot to her feet, her composure completely shattered. He's making this up. Austin fell. It was an accident. I never stole anything. Her voice cracked with hysteria, but her eyes showed something else entirely, pure panic. This is a desperate man's fantasy. Amanda Hayes interjected, though she looked shaken. My client categorically denies these accusations. Judge Morrison studied both of us carefully. Dr. Barrett, these are extremely serious allegations. Do you have any evidence to support these claims? I reached into my jacket and pulled out Austin's journal. My son documented everything, Your Honor, including Sloane's theft and his plan to expose her. Your Honor. Grant stood, we request a full investigation into both the charity embezzlement and the circumstances of Austin Barrett's death. We believe forensic evidence will corroborate my client's testimony. Judge Morrison's expression was grim. Given the gravity of these allegations, this court orders a complete investigation. The estate proceedings are suspended pending the outcome. Sloane was shaking her head frantically. No, this isn't happening. He's lying. But everyone in that courtroom could see the truth written in her terrified eyes. 6 months later, the investigation had unraveled everything. Forensic experts confirmed Austin's injuries were consistent with being pushed. Financial records proved Sloane had stolen over $50,000 from the children's charity. Her fake witnesses recanted their testimony when faced with perjury charges. Sloane Barrett was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, embezzlement, and perjury. She received 12 years in prison, 1 year for each year I'd kept her secret. I stood at Austin's grave on a crisp autumn morning, reading the newspaper headline, Doctor's Daughter Sentenced for Brother's Death. Justice took 12 years, son, I whispered, placing fresh flowers on his headstone. But everyone knows the truth now. Everyone knows you died trying to do the right thing. The wind rustled through the oak trees, and for the first time since that terrible night, I felt like Austin could finally rest in peace. Looking back at my story now, I realize how many mistakes I made along the way. I thought I was protecting my daughter by covering up the truth, but I was actually enabling her destructive behavior. For 12 years, I carried the weight of a secret that should never have been kept. My advice to anyone listening to these grandpa stories: don't make the same choices I did. When someone you love does something wrong, even something terrible, the answer isn't silence. The answer is accountability coupled with love and support to help them face the consequences of their actions. I've learned that God has a way of bringing truth to light, no matter how deeply we try to bury it. Austin's journal was his way of ensuring justice would eventually prevail. Sometimes we think we're protecting people by hiding their sins, but we're actually preventing them from receiving the grace and redemption that only comes through confession and genuine repentance. This true story taught me that love without boundaries isn't really love at all, it's enabling. Real love means holding people accountable for their actions even when it's painful, especially when it's painful. The hardest lesson from this true story is that silence in the face of wrongdoing doesn't protect anyone. It only allows the poison to spread. Austin died because I didn't teach Sloane that actions have consequences. If I had addressed her earlier problems with honesty and integrity, maybe none of this would have happened. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings. They're reminders that our choices echo through generations. Every time we choose convenience over truth, comfort over justice, we plant seeds that will eventually bear bitter fruit. God gave us Austin's journal for a reason. He wanted the truth to emerge not just for my sake, but for Sloane's sake too. She needed to face what she had done in order to have any chance at real redemption. If you're facing a situation where someone you love has done something wrong, don't follow my example. Don't cover it up. Don't make excuses. Love them enough to let them face the consequences, and trust that God can work even in the darkest circumstances to bring about healing and restoration. The truth may hurt, but lies destroy everything they touch. What do you think? Have you ever had to make a choice between protecting someone you love and doing what's right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that remind us why integrity matters even when it costs us everything. I upgraded my penthouse security system for $8,500. Smart locks, motion sensors, cameras everywhere. The property manager and I reviewed every detail, impenetrable. Then I walked in with my perfect tenants, a surgeon and his pharmacist wife, and found 7 strangers living inside. But here's what haunts me. They didn't break in. No forced entry. No alarms triggered. No alerts on my phone. So how did they get in? And why was my own daughter smiling at me from the kitchen like she'd been expecting me? Oh, Dad, you should have called before coming over. Comment below where you're watching this from, because the answer to how she got in and what I did next will shock you. And I need to know, would you have seen it coming? My name is Jeffrey Collins, and I'm 58 years old. For 3 decades, I've built a career as an architect here in Seattle, climbing from drafting tables to owning Collins' architecture firm. Today, I design homes for Seattle's elite, earning around $400,000 annually. 10 years ago, I purchased a penthouse in the Elliott Building in Capitol Hill, 2,200 square feet overlooking Puget Sound and the Olympic Mountains. I paid $1.1 million for it then. Today, it's worth $2.4 million. That penthouse was my sanctuary, filled with furniture and art collected from around the world. Every corner reflected my journey. 3 years ago, I lost my wife Margaret to cancer. She was 58, the same age I am now. Her death left a hole I'm still learning to navigate. Some nights I'd sit by those windows watching the city lights blur through tears I wouldn't let fall during the day. My children took her death differently. Thomas, my 32-year-old son, had always been independent. He left home at 18, put himself through architecture school, and now runs his own firm in Portland. Then there's Jessica, my 35-year-old daughter. She's married to Brian Mitchell, a construction worker, and they have 3 kids. Emma is 8, Noah is 6, and Lily just turned 3. But they struggle constantly. 7 people crammed into a 3-bedroom apartment. Jessica and Brian, their 3 kids. Brian's mother, Sharon, who has diabetes, and Brian's younger brother, Kyle, who's been unemployed for 6 months. Margaret used to fix everything, writing checks to cover their problems. After she died, that fell to me. For 3 years, I'd been helping them stay afloat. 3 months ago in July, I decided to expand to Portland, opening a studio in the Pearl District. The first year would cost around $300,000. I had savings and could secure a loan, but I wanted steady cash flow. So I decided to rent out my Seattle penthouse for 2 years. I hired Marcus Webb, a property manager with 15 years of experience. In August, I invested $85,000 in renovations and $8,500 in security. Smart locks on the main entrance camera's motion sensors, but I didn't upgrade the service entrance at the back. It still had the old mechanical lock from Margaret's time. I'd change it after finding a tenant. By early September, the penthouse gleamed. Marcus listed it for $6,500 a month, but I gave him strict requirements. Excellent credit, income 4 times the rent. No pets, no young children, 2-year minimum glowing references. This penthouse represented my life's work. I needed the right tenants. Marcus whistled at my list. These are comprehensive, Jeff. It might take a while. I'm willing to wait. I had no idea how long that wait would be, or what would happen while I waited. I was so focused on finding the perfect tenant, I didn't see the threat much closer to home. It was sitting at my own dinner table 3 weeks later, watching me with calculating eyes. 3 weeks after listing the property on a rainy September evening, I invited Jessica and her family over for dinner. Just the 5 of them. Sharon and Kyle stayed home. Emma wrapped her arms around my waist. Hi, Grandpa? Noah and Lily followed immediately, touching everything, their energy filling the space. Brian shook my hand, his grip tired. Thanks for having us, Jeff. I'd made pasta and salad. I wasn't much of a cook. Margaret had handled that. We sat around the dining table, rain streaking the windows, city lights blurred beyond. Emma talked about art class. Noah showed me his toy car. Lily made a spectacular mess with spaghetti. For a moment it felt normal. How's work, Brian? I asked. He shrugged. Slow. Winter's coming. Construction. Jessica had been quiet. Finally, she spoke. We're drowning Dad. Her voice was flat. 7 people in 3 bedrooms. Brian makes $45,000 when he's working. I make 21 from retail. We're supporting Sharon with her diabetes and Kyle while he looks for work. Rent's $3,200. Add food, utilities, childcare, medical bills. We're short thousands every month. I know it's hard, I said. I've helped when I could. 40,000 over 3 years, Jessica said. We know. We're grateful. I took a breath. I have news. I'm opening a studio in Portland. And to fund it, I'm renting out this place. Jessica and Brian exchanged glances. Rent it to us, Jessica said, like it was obvious. It would be perfect. Brian leaned in. This place is huge, Jeff. Sharon needs better space for her health. The stairs are killing her. Jessica pulled out her phone, showed me a photo. I found Mom's diary. Look, she wrote, I want Jessica to have the penthouse. She needs it more than Thomas. I stared at Margaret's handwriting. My chest tightened. That was her personal thoughts, Jessica, not a legal will. This is business. I need the rental income. Business, I'm your daughter. I've already listed it. I need reliable tenants with excellent credit and references. Brian tried. We could pay $3,000 a month. It's not about the amount. This is a business investment. Jessica's voice rose. You're making hundreds of thousands and you can't help your own family. I've given you $40,000 in 3 years. When does it end? Mom would have let us stay. She promised. Your mother spoiled you. Jessica stood. Don't you dare. Brian reached for her. Jess. She pulled away. Come on, kids, we're leaving. Emma looked scared. But Grandpa... Now, Brian gathered the kids, embarrassed. Sorry, Jeff. Tough year. At the door, Jessica turned. You'll regret this. Mom would be ashamed of you. The door slammed. I watched them climb into their minivan through the rain. Emma's face pressed against the glass. I'd noticed Jessica checking her phone during dinner. The rental listing, I should have paid attention. Have you ever had to say no to someone you love, knowing it would hurt them? Have you ever been called selfish for setting boundaries with family? I'd love to hear your story. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. Drop a comment below if this resonates with you. That night alone in the penthouse, I couldn't sleep. The rain drummed against the windows and my mind kept circling back to Margaret. The rain drummed against the windows and my mind kept circling back to Margaret. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 3 years and I still reached for her in the night. The bed felt too large, too empty. I thought about Jessica at 15 standing in our kitchen with a magazine open to the newest iPhone. $800. Margaret didn't hesitate. Of course, sweetheart. You deserve it. I'd tried. Honey, she already has a perfectly good phone. We're spoiling her? Margaret touched my arm. She's our little girl, Jeff. Let me love her my way. Across the room, 12-year-old Thomas sat reading about Frank Lloyd Wright, content with his old phone. Even then I saw the difference. Thomas was content. Jessica always wanted more. 10 years ago, Jessica was 25, newly married, pregnant with Emma. Brian lost his construction job. They moved in with us for 6 months. Margaret handled everything. Never asked them to contribute. I'd pulled her aside. They need to learn to stand on their own feet. Jessica's pregnant, Jeff. Let them heal. But when will it end? She'd changed the subject. 6 months later, they moved out. The pattern was set. 3 years ago, Margaret lay in a hospital bed dying. Her grip was weak but determined. Promise me you'll take care of our little girl. Jessica needs you. Tears ran down my face. And Jeff the penthouse. I always imagined Jessica and the kids there someday. Promise me you'll consider it. I couldn't refuse my dying wife. I promise I'll take care of her. She smiled relieved. Days later, she was gone. I sat up now, rubbing my temples. I'd kept that promise. For 3 years, I helped them. Paid debts. Covered rent. Close to $40,000. But Margaret, you were wrong. Jessica wasn't weak. She was capable. She just never had to be strong because you never let her. You caught them every time. And now they expected everyone else to do the same. Thomas left home at 18. Put himself through school. Started his own firm. Struggled, yes, but he made it. Jessica was 35 with 3 kids, and still expected everyone to rescue her. I loved you, Margaret. God, I miss you. But your love for Jessica was a poison disguised as devotion. I couldn't change the past, but I could change the future. even if it meant Jessica would hate me for it. September turned into October, and October into November. Marcus called every week. Interest, yes. Qualified tenants. Not quite. We had a tech executive couple, Marcus reported in early October. Great income, perfect credit, but they have 2 golden retrievers. No pets? He paused. Jeff, are you sure about all these requirements? The longer the property sits empty, the harder it gets. I'm sure, Marcus. By mid-October, a doctor with 3 young children applied. Excellent credentials, willing to pay above asking. But I imagined sticky hands on white walls. I said no. That was probably our best option, Marcus said. The right tenants are out there. November arrived with more near misses. Marcus was getting frustrated, but I held firm. Then on a gray November afternoon, Marcus called with excitement. Jeff, I think I finally found them. Dr. James Anderson and his wife Sarah. He's a surgeon at Swedish Medical Center. She's a pharmacist. Credit scores over 780. Combined income over 400,000. No pets, no kids. 2-year lease. They'll pay first, last, and security up front. $19,500. Hope flickered. They sound perfect. Dr. Anderson looked up your firm online. He's a fan of your work. The knot in my chest loosened. When can I meet them? They're flying in this weekend. Friday afternoon, December 6th at 2 p.m. I'll be there. I'll meet you in the lobby at 1:45. Marcus hesitated. Jeff, I know the wait has been frustrating, but I think it's going to be worth it. Thank you, Marcus. I hung up with a smile. Finally, after nearly 3 months, things were falling into place. I had no idea that while I'd been patiently waiting for the perfect tenants, someone else had been waiting too, watching the listing, monitoring the days on market counter as it climbed. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, counting the days, planning her move, and she'd already made it. Friday, December 6th arrived with clear skies and cautious optimism. After nearly 3 months of searching, we'd finally found them. Dr. James and Sarah Anderson. On paper, they were everything I'd been looking for. I arrived at the Elliott Building 15 minutes early, dressed in a blazer. This wasn't just about renting a property. This was about entrusting my life's work to people who would appreciate it. Marcus arrived with the Andersons at 1:45 sharp. Dr. Anderson was tall, silver-haired, distinguished. Sarah was elegant, warm, both clearly successful. Mr. Collins, Dr. Anderson said, shaking my hand, I looked up your firm online. That waterfront home in Madison Park was stunning. Thank you. This penthouse is one of my personal projects. In the elevator, Marcus explained the amenities. 24/7 concierge, gym, rooftop terrace. What kind of security does the building have? Dr. Anderson asked. State-of-the-art system, I said confidently. Smart locks, cameras, motion sensors. $8,500 worth of equipment. That's reassuring. We walked down the quiet hallway to Unit 2501. This place means a lot to me, I said. I designed it right after starting my firm. It represents a milestone. Dr. Anderson nodded. We'll take excellent care of it. I placed my finger on the smart lock scanner. Green light. I pushed the door open, stepping aside. Please come in. But my words froze mid-sentence. What stretched before us wasn't the pristine sanctuary I'd left 3 months ago. Brian sprawled on my white leather sofa, in a tank top, unshaven beer belly visible. Football blared on the TV. 3 empty beer cans sat on my Italian glass coffee table. Chips spilled across the cushions. Kyle lay in my designer Eames lounge chair, playing video games, earbuds in. Empty pizza box on the floor. Orange Dorito dust everywhere. Emma and Noah played on the floor. Legos scattered across the hardwood. Toys spread across my Persian rug. Lily ran around in a diaper sippy cup, leaking milk. Chocolate smeared her face. She ran to my white wall and touched it. Brown handprints. Sharon sat at my dining table, feet propped up, swollen ankles visible. Medical supplies scattered everywhere. Blood glucose monitor. Pill bottles. Syringes. In the kitchen, Jessica cooked. The smell of onions and meat filled the air. Dirty dishes piled high, grocery bags on the counter. Kids' drawings covered the refrigerator. TV blaring, kids talking, sizzling from the kitchen. The smell of cooking food beer, baby wipes, lived in, stale. My furniture had been moved. Nothing was in its place. I stood frozen, hand still on the door handle. Marcus sucked in a sharp breath. What the... is this? Sarah said quietly. Are we interrupting something? Marcus, Dr. Anderson said. I thought you said the property was vacant. Jessica looked up from the stove. She didn't look surprised. She wiped her hands casually and walked toward us, smiling slightly. Oh, Dad, you should have called before coming over. Her tone suggested I was the one being rude. We're settled in now. Brian finally noticed us. He muted the TV and stood up stretching. Hey, Jeff. Big smile. He walked over, extending his hand. I didn't take it. Thanks for letting us stay, man. This place is amazing. He looked at the Andersons. Oh, hey. You guys friends of Jeff's? Sharon looked up. Jeffrey. You're a good man. This place is perfect for my medical needs. So much better than that cramped apartment. Kyle glanced up for half a second. Yo, Jeff. Then back to his game. Emma looked up from her Legos. Hi, Grandpa. She kept playing. Noah ran over with a toy car. Grandpa, look. He crashed into my leg. Lily toddled over, chocolate hands reaching up. Up. Jessica pulled a key from her pocket. I was going through Mom's things last week. I found her old spare key. The one for the service entrance. Remember, she kept it for emergencies. She held it up. Mom's key. She would have wanted us to have it. This place would be mine and Thomas's someday. She wrote it in her diary. Brian chimed in. Yeah, Jeff. And with Sharon being so sick, we really needed a better place. Family takes care of family. Sharon nodded. Margaret would have wanted this. Service entrance. The words hit like ice water. Margaret had kept that key in her jewelry box for years. I'd upgraded the main door with a $2,000 smart lock. Cameras. Motion sensors. Marcus and I had reviewed the security system together, confident it was impenetrable. But we'd both forgotten about the service entrance, the old mechanical lock from 10 years ago, the one that didn't connect to any system. Our $8,000 security system had been bypassed by a $20 key. We'd listed this property in early September, nearly 3 months ago, and somehow in the days before I was supposed to show it to these perfect tenants, Jessica had moved in. 7 people. All their belongings, medical equipment, toys, groceries. The timing couldn't be coincidence. She'd been watching, monitoring the listing. I remembered her checking her phone during dinner. She'd been tracking it, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And in that moment, watching my daughter stand in my kitchen like she owned the place, watching Brian's clueless smile, watching Sharon's entitled expression, I watched my carefully constructed plan, 3 months of patient searching, crumble into dust. Dr. Anderson cleared his throat, and I knew even before he spoke that I'd lost them. Dr. Anderson cleared his throat. The sound cut through the chaos. Mr. Collins, he said, polite but firm, I think there's been some confusion here. No, wait. Dr. Anderson, this is a mistake. This is my property. They're not supposed to be here. Sarah turned to Marcus. Marcus, I think we should leave. Marcus's face went pale. Dr. Anderson, Mrs. Anderson, I'm so sorry. This is completely unexpected. Jeffrey had no idea. Dr. Anderson cut him off. I understand, but clearly this isn't the right time. Sarah was already backing toward the elevator. We'll wait to hear from you, Marcus, when things are sorted out. Her tone said they wouldn't be interested. I tried to follow. Please, if you could just give me a moment. Dr. Anderson glanced back. We'll be in touch. Take care, Mr. Collins. But his tone said we won't be calling. The elevator doors closed. Perfect tenants. Gone. 3 months of searching wasted. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the closed elevator. He turned to me, looking sick. Jeffrey, I don't know what to say. His voice shook. 3 months. We spent 3 months finding them. He ran his hand through his hair. I should have checked the property before the showing. This is my fault. I got overconfident. I trusted the security system. Marcus, I should have done a physical walkthrough. That's basic protocol. He pulled out his phone, checking the app frantically. The front door hasn't been opened. The cameras show nothing. She must have come through the service entrance, I said quietly. The old mechanical lock. I never upgraded it. Marcus closed his eyes. I should have known. I should have checked every entry point. Jessica's voice called from the kitchen. Dad, are you still out there? Marcus couldn't face her. I need to go back to the office. Try to salvage something. I'll call you later. Jeffrey, I'm so sorry. He fled to the elevator, wouldn't meet my eyes. The doors closed. I was alone in the hallway with a penthouse full of uninvited guests. I turned back to the open door. TV, kids playing, Jessica cooking, normal family sounds. But this wasn't their home. This was my home. I stepped inside and closed the door. Jessica was back at the stove, humming. Brian had unmuted the TV, beer in hand. Kyle was on his phone. Sharon was adjusting her medical equipment. The kids were playing. Emma building Legos. Noah with his toy car. Lily climbing onto the coffee table. Nobody seemed to notice or care that I had just lost my perfect tenants. I stood there taking it in. My sanctuary, trampled. My 3 months of searching, destroyed. My perfect tenants, gone. My daughter, sitting here like she owned the place. Anger rose inside me, slow and cold. Not hot rage, cold fury, the kind that makes you very calm. Jessica. She didn't look up. Jessica, look at me. She turned wooden spoon in hand, annoyed, like I was interrupting her. What are you doing here? What does it look like we moved in? We're living here now. Stating a fact, not asking permission. You had no right. I had every right. Mom wanted me to have this place. She said so. In a diary, personal thoughts, not a legal will. Jessica shrugged. It's what she wanted. You know it's true. This is my property. My name on the deed. My decision. She went back to stirring. Well, we're here now, and we're not leaving. Calmly, matter-of-factly, like it was decided. Brian called from the sofa. Come on, Jeff. It's a huge place. We can all share it. Sharon nodded. Family should stick together. Margaret understood that. Looking back now, I wonder if I could have handled it differently. Should I have seen this coming? Should I have changed the locks immediately after Margaret passed? If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, you know that feeling, the shock, the anger, the disbelief. How did you handle it? I'm curious what you would have done in my shoes. Let me know in the comments. I turned slowly to face Jessica fully. The words came out cold, final, deliberate. Get out. The silence that followed was deafening. Get out. The 2 words hung in the air. Jessica looked up from the stove. What? I said get out. All of you, now. Jessica set down the spoon. No. Simple. Flat refusal. Your mother is dead. This is my property, and you are trespassing. Trespassing. I'm your daughter. How can you treat family like criminals? Brian stood up. Jeff, come on. Let's just calm down. There's nothing to talk about. You broke into my property? You're leaving. Sharon called from the table. Jeffrey, this is shameful. Margaret would be horrified. This has nothing to do with you, Sharon. Jessica's voice rose. We're drowning 7 people in a 3-bedroom apartment, and you're sitting on this penthouse. Why can't you share? I've given you thousands over the years. When does it end? When you finally act like a real father. A real father teaches his children to stand on their own. Your mother never did that. Don't you dare blame Mom. She spoiled you. And now you think the world owes you everything. Jessica stepped toward me, sneering. So what are you going to do, drag your own daughter onto the street? Drag little Lily out, she's 3. What kind of monster does that? I'm not going to throw you out. Jessica looked triumphant. That's what I thought. She turned back to the stove. So why don't you leave? You're right. I won't throw you out. I paused. The police will. Silence. Jessica laughed nervously. You're bluffing. I reached into my jacket and took out my smartphone. Dad put the phone away. I dialed 911. Jessica lunged forward. Dad, stop. She tried to grab the phone. I turned away. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report an unlawful entry and trespassing. Hang up, please. Jessica was screaming. Emma and Noah looked up scared. Noah started crying. Sir, can you confirm your location? The Elliott Building, 1515. Broadway East Unit, 2501, Seattle, Washington. Brian intervened. Jeff, please think about the kids. Are the individuals armed or dangerous? No, but they're refusing to leave. They broke in using an old key. How many individuals? 7. 2 adults, 1 elderly woman, 4 children. Officers are being dispatched. 10 to 15 minutes. I ended the call. Jessica stared at me, tears starting. I can't believe you did that. You gave me no choice. Mom would hate you for this. Maybe. But she'd also be ashamed of what you've become. Emma ran to me crying, Grandpa, why are you being mean to Mommy? My heart broke. I knelt down. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Grandpa has to do something very hard? Emma cried harder. Brian turned to Jessica. Jess, we need to pack. Maybe if we leave. No, we're not leaving. Sharon grabbed her phone. I'm calling my lawyer. I looked at my watch. 10 to 15 minutes. We waited. TV playing, Jessica crying, Brian pacing, Sharon on her phone, Kyle on his game, kids scared. 12 minutes passed. Then a knock. Firm, professional. Seattle Police. I took a breath and opened the door. There was no turning back now. Sergeant Williams and Officer Martinez stepped inside. 2 Seattle police officers. Williams 50s, gray at his temples. Martinez 30s, alert eyes scanning the room. Mr. Collins, yes, thank you for coming. Both took in the scene, the chaos. 7 people, children, elderly woman. Can you explain the situation? This is my property. I'm the sole legal owner. These individuals entered without permission and refused to leave. Do you have documentation? I retrieved my folder. Property deed, driver's license, tax statement. Williams examined them. Everything's in order. This property is registered in your name. He turned to Jessica. Ma'am, do you have permission to be here? Jessica wiped her tears. I have a key. My mother gave it to me. Is your mother listed on the deed? My wife passed 3 years ago, I said. I'm the sole owner. I never gave permission. Martinez checked the service entrance. Old lock, no forced entry. Williams turned back. Ma'am, even with a key without permission, this is trespassing. You need to vacate immediately. Jessica stood desperate. No, we're not leaving. Williams's tone became firm. Ma'am, if you refuse, I'll have to place you under arrest. Jessica turned to me, tears streaming. Dad, please, think about the kids. No, Jessica screamed. I hate you. Brian grabbed her arm. Jess, stop. Jessica shook him off and pushed past the officers. I'm not leaving. Martinez blocked her. Ma'am, stop. Jessica pushed his arm. Get out of my way. Williams stepped forward. That's obstruction. You're under arrest. Handcuffs. Jessica struggled. No. Williams and Martinez worked together. Click of handcuffs. Jessica sobbed. Dad, please. Williams read Miranda rights. You're being arrested for criminal trespass and obstruction. Brian turned to the officers. Does she have to be arrested? She interfered with an officer. Emma screamed. Mommy! Martinez gently blocked her. We're not hurting her. Noah cried. Lily wailed. Jessica looked back, sobbing. It's okay, babies. Emma ran to me, pounding my chest. I hate you, Grandpa. I knelt down, tears in my eyes. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I pulled her close. She was shaking. Williams turned to me. What about the children? Their father's here. I gestured to Brian. You're the father. Brian nodded, holding Lily. Yeah, you'll be responsible for them. Williams looked at Sharon and Kyle. The others? Brian's mother and brother. Not my responsibility. Williams turned to Brian. You need to vacate as well. Where are we supposed to go? Take essential items now. Arrange for the rest later. Williams added, Child Protective Services may follow up. Standard procedure. Brian went pale. CPS. I looked at Brian. Take the kids to your mother's apartment. Come back tomorrow with a truck. Brian nodded. Okay. The officers led Jessica to the door. She looked back. I'll never forgive you. The door closed. Her sobs faded. Emma was in my arms, face buried in my chest. I hate you, Grandpa, she whispered. But her arms were wrapped tight. She didn't let go. Neither did I. I know, sweetheart. I know. That moment hearing those words from Emma nearly broke me. I've replayed it 1,000 times, wondering if I was a monster. But I also know that love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's firm. Sometimes it hurts. Have you ever had to make a decision that hurt someone you loved, but you knew it was right? How did you find the strength to follow through? Your stories might help someone else facing the same impossible choice. Please share below. We're all in this together. As the door closed, I was left with 6 people who didn't belong there. Brian holding Lily, Sharon glaring, Kyle uncomfortable, Emma clinging to me, and Noah alone clutching his toy car, not understanding why his world had shattered. The next 2 hours were a blur. I sat with Emma and Noah while Brian packed. Sharon sat silent. Kyle was helping. Emma wouldn't look at me. Noah nestled against my side. When is Mommy coming back? Your mommy made some mistakes. She has to talk to some people first. Emma looked at me angry. You sent her to jail? Sometimes grown-ups have to face consequences. I don't care. I want my mommy. My heart ached. I know you're angry, but Grandpa loves you. This isn't about you. Are you hungry? Should we get some ice cream? Even Emma couldn't resist. We went to Salt and Straw, sat outside eating in silence. Emma spoke quietly. Grandpa, are we going to be okay? Yes, I promise. Where are we going to live? Your daddy will figure that out, and I'll help, but not by giving you my house. Small step. Back at the penthouse, I called Thomas. Dad, what's up? My voice broke. Son, I need you in Seattle. It's about Jessica. I explained everything. Jessica moving in, the disaster, calling 911, the arrest. Long pause. You called the police on Jessica. I had no choice. Dad, stop. I'm proud of you. What? I've been waiting years for someone to hold her accountable. Mom never could. I promised your mother. Mom was wrong. Her love for Jessica was toxic. Tears ran down my face. You just did something she never could. You let Jessica face consequences. Emma said she hates me. You did the right thing. The hard thing. The loving thing. It doesn't feel loving. Real love isn't always soft. Sometimes it breaks your heart. He paused. I'll be there in 4 hours, around 7:30. Thank you, son. You did the right thing. Hold on to that. Brian came to me. Jeff, I'm sorry. Where will you go? Sharon has a friend in Renton. Come back tomorrow with a truck. They left, finally alone. I examined the service entrance, the old lock. I laughed bitterly. $8,000 in security defeated by a $20 key. I called a locksmith. I need all locks changed. Today. He arrived at 6, changed everything. $2,500. I cleaned while he worked. Therapeutic. Threw away everything they left. By 10, the penthouse was pristine, but it felt different. Violated? Just a property now. The sanctuary was gone. At 7:30, Thomas arrived. He hugged me tight. I held on. You okay? I've been better. We worked in silence. How are you holding up? Emma said she hates me. My voice broke. Thomas sat beside me. She's 8. Give her time. Dad, I left home because I couldn't watch Mom destroy Jessica. Every time Jess failed, Mom caught her. Jessica never learned to catch herself. I should have stopped it. You loved Mom, but love without boundaries isn't love. It's poison. You're teaching Jessica to stand on her own. That's real love. Hard love. Jessica will hate you for a while, but one day she might understand. And if she doesn't, then that's her choice. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Next morning I called Marcus. Marcus, I'm sorry. Stop, Jeff. This was my failure. I should have inspected. It cost you the perfect tenants. It's going to be harder now. Yes, could take longer, but I won't give up. Physical checks before every showing, I promise. As I stood in the clean penthouse with Thomas beside me, I felt something shift. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was the beginning of freedom. 8 weeks later, Marcus called. Jeffrey, I have news. French couple. Pierre and Amélie Rousseau. Amazon employees. Combined income $450,000. Excellent credit. They're offering $7,800 a month. 2-year lease. $23,400 upfront. When can we sign? Monday. We sign Monday. $187,200 over 2 years. Finally. I finalized the Portland studio. Pearl District. Opened in March. By April, 3 projects ongoing. Business growing. 6 months later, my phone rang. International number. Linda Carter. Margaret's sister. Jeffrey, it's Linda. I'm calling about Jessica. How is she? She completed diversion. Charges dismissed. But word spread. Friends stopped helping. She moved to South Seattle. Cheaper apartment. Working full-time retail. $42,000 a year. Struggling but surviving. No more bailouts. For the first time, she's standing on her own. How does she feel about me? Angry. Won't speak to you. Emma's warming back through Thomas. But Jessica. No contact. Maybe she never will forgive you. But she's learning. Linda paused. Margaret was my sister. I loved her. But she was wrong. Margaret thought love meant protection, but that's fear. You did what she couldn't. You loved Jessica enough to let her fall. Tears filled my eyes. She might understand one day, or she might not. But you did right. We said goodbye. I sat in my Portland studio. Sunlight through the windows. I thought about Margaret. I can't live in your shadow anymore. I thought about Jessica. I hope you find your strength. I thought about myself. The man I'd been always catching. The man I was becoming, someone with boundaries. I returned to the blueprints, work to do, a life to build. For the first time in years, I felt free. I had finally learned sometimes the most loving thing is to let your child fall so they can learn to stand. It was the hardest lesson. It cost me a daughter, at least for now, my grandchildren's easy affection, but it gave me back myself. The gift of freedom, the gift of truth, the gift of real love. Even if she never understands, even if I live with that loss forever, it was still the right thing to do. This true story taught me that real love sometimes means letting go. God gave us free will for a reason so we could learn to stand on our own. Margaret's mistake was trying to be God in Jessica's life, catching her before she could fall. But God doesn't work that way. He lets us face consequences knowing that's how we grow stronger. Grandpa stories like this aren't easy to share. They're messy, painful, and don't always have happy endings. But they're real, and maybe that's what makes them worth telling. I pray to God every day that Jessica will understand someday, that Emma, Noah, and Lily will know their grandpa did what he thought was right. These true story moments, the ones that break us and remake us, they're what define us. Grandpa stories aren't about being perfect. They're about being honest. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to our channel for more grandpa stories about real families facing impossible choices. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Your voice matters here.